Fasten your safety belts, please. Fasten your safety belts, please. We're coming in to land.
Close to the head of the Persian Gulf, an hour's flight from Basra, lies Kuwait. The city-state of Kuwait, not much older than the United States of America. An independent Arab sheikhdom in close treaty relations with Great Britain.
It's now the 5th largest oil-producing country in the world.
In the early morning, the plane from London bringing in some of the wives and children of the men who work in the oil field, British and American. For some of the wives, this is the first visit to Arabia.
They say the desert's floating on oil.
Really? It's terribly warm, isn't it?
The plane also brought from London a group of technicians.
Look at the new boys, feeling shy.
Give them a chance. I guess most of us felt like that first time.
They'll drive out to Archmedy, the new town built by the oil company. It lies on a sandy ridge facing the sea, 20 miles down the coast.
Soon, instead of a stretch of sand, there was Archmedy.
English prefabricated houses, wooden Swedish ones, aluminium houses from the United States, houses made of concrete block, of brick, and of foamed concrete. A town built with astonishing rapidity just after the war when materials were really short. A new town with swimming pools and sports grounds growing in the empty desert, still expanding. This is one of the social clubs.
The women take over every 4th Thursday. The men get the place back next day.
The old town of Kuwait. It's changing fast, but the foundations of its daily life remain firm in Islam. In Kuwait, the light's always like this, harsh and sharp as it is in the desert. The Bedou guard walked in early this morning. He has business in the law courts.
It's natural for him to carry a rifle. Bedouin too, as a matter of course.
In the bazaar, there are the transactions of a town lying across the trade routes to Iraq, Saudi Arabia, India, Pakistan, and Africa. Any kind of currency may be bought at open stalls. Gold sovereigns, Maria Theresa dollars, American dollars.
600, 700, 800.
The Persian Gulf is the fishing ground for pearls of a unique rose-pink color. They have always commanded world esteem.
Assalamu alaikum. عليكم السلام. عسى قماش اللي عندك أحسن من ذيك المرة. الحمد لله حظنا زين هالسنة. باريس بعد الحمد لله.
Single pearls have brought a price of £20,000 before now.
الله يسلم. ما يقدر يدفع أكثر.
The diver, however, seldom makes his fortune.
شوفه زين. ما بيعدون 6000. زود يا عم شوية ترى قماشه يستاهل.
يدري حلت البركة. هذا راح صفر 5000 رب.
زود شوية.
حلت ما فوق 5000.
الله يبارك لك. الله يبارك لك فيه. عندك ولا عندك؟
عندك
والله
اي لا
اقدر اشوفك دقيقة واحدة.
Several hundred pearling vessels still carry Kuwaiti divers down the Gulf to the oyster beds each year.
As it has been for generations, pearling is a major industry of Kuwait.
Only 200 years ago, Kuwait was a desert camp. It grew into a stronghold. Within it, much of the tribal code continued on without change.
The ruler's flag flies under the sword of Islam.
His Highness Sheikh Abdullah As-Salim As-Suba.
The personnel element is strong, though his subjects number 150,000 in the town and villages, with 20,000 Bedouin in the desert.
By custom, the ruler's falconers are Bedouin.
يلا يا ربيع يلا هم ينطرونا هناك يلا يلا.
Falconry, the desert sport, is popular still. They hunt the hubara or bustard, found in the desert in winter.
No man has a stronger sense of personal freedom than the Bedouin of the desert.
The desert encompasses 3 parts of the town, and desert life, its daily harshness, is a strong discipline.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thus, the Sheikhdom of Kuwait was, in its own right, a center of vigorous, varied, and wholesome life.
The palm branches from Basra also. We have little but what we bring in. Palm branches for the ceilings of our mud roofs, to make mats, even for fuel. The bare bones of existence, they must be brought. Even sweet water has had to be brought from 100 miles up the Gulf from the mouth of the Shatt el Arab.
قواكم الله قواكم الله. يا اقول لك يلا روح اول.
نروح؟ نسيت لي قلت نخلص شغل هني وبعدين نروح.
اي بس خفتي ذاك انت ليش اللي ما فهمت.
Men of the old order accepted such rigors and were proud of the achievement, a great town maintained on a barren shore.
From the first, the oil people conform to local custom whenever possible. The Muslim Sunday is adopted, Friday becomes the day of rest. Archimedes spreads down the hill. The 2-story general offices are at its center. Today, the offices are emptying as Archimedes launches itself into a fine weekend.
Downhill past the guest house, the town has a moment of quiet before the children at the joint Anglo-American school come out.
Archimedes is a pleasant, cheerful town. Many nationalities are engaged in the oil enterprise. Its success is invigorating. The weekend shopping has to be done, and the shopping center closes promptly at lunchtime. No rationing.
Quickly, son. Daddy'll push.
You bring the trolley along.
Trolley? You need a lorry for that lot?
Hidden inside its corrugated umbrella, the prefab stays fairly cool, even when the heat jumps to 110.
When I left, he was trying to boil a couple of eggs in his shoe.
Life can be very pleasant on the veranda.
Short at the back, please.
Oh, hello. 1 o'clock already. What time do we book the court? What most people long for is a little bit of green and a chair in the shade. Even if there is Arabic homework to do.
Come along, dear. You can finish that after lunch.
Later, the neighbors take tea in a thriving garden in the middle of the desert. Looks like a mirage, but it's real, very real, and very important. After a few months in this parched land, the mind craves color. The smallest green thing brings delight. In Kuwait that same afternoon, along the waterfront among the shipyards are found the homes of a large and wealthy middle class.
Vessels from these yards are known from Basra to Bombay, Zanzibar to Aden.
خذها من اليمين لليسار شوي. هذه صغيرة هذه. صغيرة وايد. زودها شوي.
You can find quite a few ships on the stocks. 400 dhows trade out of the port. That's a lot of shipping.
Alhamdulillah.
Boom, Bagala, or Sambuk. The shipwright sees the plan in his head. He doesn't use a blueprint. A mark or two on the sand shows what he wants.
The ruler of Kuwait is fond of the sea. The hull of his new yacht is built to traditional design and strengthened to take a heavy diesel power unit.
تمام تمام. اسحب عندك.
The ruler's vessel is named Bayan after a coastal village. The wind that blows the dhows serenely along the Gulf blows pleasantly too for the model plane experts in Ahmadi.
The wind's gone right around to the north, Junior.
Gosh, Pop, I hope it works this time.
You and me both.
Say, Pop,
Yeah?
you sure she's got her wings on right?
Hey, you never know till you try 'em out.
As a rule, there are several weddings a year. They celebrate in traditional style, three-tiered cake.
Doesn't she look lovely? He's quite handsome too, in those clothes. He looks very nice.
There are signs of permanency in the new town of Ahmadi.
The traditional weekend gets underway.
Where's your pipes, McDonald?
Every nationality competes on the playing field. Not everybody finds relaxation in sport.
Glass case over the mantelpiece. The heat is going out of the sky. The herds come in from grazing in the desert.
We know it is 4 o'clock. Time to put up the shutters. Slowly flaming over all, from heat to heat, the day decreases. In the bazaar, soft, sweet grass is bought for the household goat to round off the harsh diet of camel thorn snatched in the desert.
يلا نطلع من السوق الحين.
عقب ما نشتري نبغي نطلع من السوق يمين.
هدا 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 هدا.
They know their own houses, of course.
Hada hada. So to the end of the first day. The city sleeps tonight as usual, behind a wall built a generation ago as a protection against fanatical tribesmen from the hinterland.
The discovery of oil under this territory dated back only a few years, to 1938. By any standard, it was a remarkable field that began beneath the isolated cedar tree in the desert 30 miles south of Kuwait. In April 1938, the second test well struck oil. It was in the Bergan region.
Bergan well number 1.
At only 3,500 feet, an oil-bearing sand 150 feet thick.
It's phenomenal.
Let's hear the rest in the words of someone who was in at the start. We pulled out and went 2 miles off. We drilled through the first sand and struck another only 30 feet below, 500 feet thick. We couldn't believe it. Then through a thin shale bed and into another horizon, 200 feet thick. The third boring outdid even that. It produced a fourth sand. So within 2 years of the start, we knew we were onto one of the best fields ever discovered. Wells 5, 6, and 7 were sunk on a line run through one of the few landmarks in the place, were a hill, a quartzite cap scored with tribal hieroglyphics.
Like initials carved on a monument.
These wells gave us the lay of the field. 8 and 9 ended the series sunk before the outbreak of war.
In 1942, the war put an end to our activities for the time being. When the war ended, we came back with plans for major production within 2 years, starting from scratch.
There was only one small jetty, the one at Shuwaik. Across it came leagues of piping to take seawater inland to the rigs, to pipe oil from well to separator, separator to tank, tank to the submarine loading line. Casing, water pipe, drain pipe, day and night, month in, month out.
Across that small jetty came every sort of equipment. Lorries, cranes, heavy cranes and heavier lorries to carry them. 50 bulldozers, the raw material for a complete town. The oil field took hundreds of technicians. The technicians had wives and children. Their families needed homes.
Everything had to be imported. Perambulators, coat hooks, cushion covers, refrigerator vans.
And even a lawnmower.
For the field, rigs, bits, steel chain, blow-down valves, pumps, fans, diesels, steel, timber, hoses, wire brushes, wheelbars, the whole issue. The enormous bits and pieces for half a dozen oil collecting stations.
By 1949, it was possible to stand back and add up the achievement.
It's not bad going. It's the last report sheet on well 70. 70, mark you. We've drilled 70.
The bustle of the pioneering stage came to a natural end.
Then, parallel to the oil story, a long search to find fresh water. Over the years, the Kuwaiti, townsmen and Bedouin, had dug into every likely bit of ground. Hundreds of wells, most of them dry from the start. Some held 10 feet or so of water after the spring rain.
3 inches is the annual downfall.
About as much as London gets in June.
Paradise is a place where water never stops flowing. A wet day is a holiday. In summer's heat, sandstorms blowing from the northwest make lack of water very hard to bear. Worst of all is when the storms come during Ramadan, the month when no Orthodox Muslim may eat or drink from sunrise to sunset. The wind, called the shimal, even has a smell, like the draft from a furnace.
In June 1948, the Shamal held up the water boats that used to bring all the company's drinking water from near the mouth of the Shatt al-Arab.
It placed the water problem in high relief.
past the sand.
There's enough here already.
Call it too much of a good thing.
Please limit your intake to 1 glass each meal.
The reference must be to water.
Every mess had to keep its own supply of water. The morning delivery was by wagon. The absence of any local fresh water was a real bugbear to everybody. Storage tanks had to be filled in turn from the mothership 20 miles away at Chuwick.
At an early stage, a freshwater survey had been started. It was still going on.
The surveyors quickly found enough brackish water in the subsoil to last an indefinite time, even used lavishly, but hardly any of it was drinkable.
At first, the drillings to the west seemed to hold promise. The salt content dropped remarkably in well 6. But after well 6, it climbed steeply again.
A few of the wells gave water that the Bedouin and their flocks and herds could take.
And the company set up windmills and made these borings open to all comers. At Sulabaya, a pumping station sent well water 13 miles to Kuwait. It was brackish, but usable.
Indeed, this water sustains great flocks and herds in the worst months.
After I've watered this lot, it's going to be a dry day up in town.
The same Pluto pumps which sent petrol across the English Channel on D-Day are right here in the desert, and still in good condition.
Just as good as ever she was. Wonderful. Not a sign of old age.
Drilling was continued up to the borders of the state, but no fresh water was found.
Here's the report on well 37, the last.
Any good? No?